Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us today for this THE student event. I'm Jamie with THE, and today I have with me 5 current international students studying at universities in the US, Canada, and the UK. We're going to spend the next 45 minutes or so having a really open conversation with them about everything from why they decided to study abroad to what things are like on their campus right now. All of the students on our panel today work with an organization called I Believe, and they're going to tell you a little bit more about that program and the resources that it provides to students later in the session. Studying abroad can be a really rewarding experience, but it's also a very big and incredibly daunting decision to make. And while we know that it's really important to look at expert resources and rankings and other tools, it's also incredibly useful to hear from students who've made the decision before you. Learning from their experience and hearing their advice can add a really invaluable perspective to your decision-making process. And so without any further ado or introduction, I want to jump right in because there's a lot to cover and we've had quite a few questions come in over social media in the past week or so. I want to get to as many of those questions as we can. You can also submit your questions using the Q&A function throughout the session, and I'll keep an eye on those. But before we jump in, I'd like to have each of our students introduce themselves. Start by having you tell us your name, where you're from, and where and what you're studying. Katie, we'll start with you.
Hi guys, I'm Katie. I'm from the Philippines and I currently study at Cornell University in New York. And I study information science and I'm hoping to minor in creative writing and game design. I'll hand it over to Bianca.
Hi everyone, I'm Bianca. I'm from Spain and currently I'm attending Florida International University, which is in Miami. My major is international relations and I'm going to take 2 certificates in security studies and also in a pre-law certificate because my hope is to go to law school to hopefully get a diplomatic career. I'm going to popcorn it off to Nisa.
Hello everyone, my name is Nisa. I'm from Malaysia and I'm currently studying biomedical sciences at the University of Warwick. I'll popcorn it over to Yayo.
Hi everyone, my name is Yayo and I'm from Ghana. I'm currently studying at the University of Ottawa in Canada and my program is psychology and French immersion. I'm going to pass it on to Yasmin.
Hi everyone, I'm Yasmin. I'm from Malaysia. I'm currently studying at the University of Pennsylvania in the US. I am planning to major in philosophy, politics, and economics.
Great, thanks guys. I think it's great. We have a variety of study destinations, a variety of home countries, and a huge variety of majors. So that's awesome. And obviously a massive thanks to all of you for joining us today. I want to start with kind of the most basic question, which I think the answer for most of you probably won't be very basic, but I want to start with why did you decide to study abroad? And Bianca, do you want to get us started?
Sure, my pleasure. So part of why I wanted to study abroad was that my parents were born in Puerto Rico. So they are US citizens and they used to live in Florida and we got a Florida prepaid plan. So studying in Florida in a public university was always like my safe option. It was there just in case I needed it, I wanted it. And having researched universities in Spain, I realized that the more holistic approach of the United States and the way you can create your own schedule more or less would fit me and my personality better than the rigid programs that were here in Spain.
Great. Nisa, do you want to add anything to that? Why did you decide to study abroad and why was it an opportunity that you looked into?
Well, I think studying abroad came as a natural decision as a third culture kid. And I think that kind of made me realize that learning about cultures in class is definitely not the same as experiencing it physically and firsthand. So I think nothing beats studying, like being abroad and having that cultural immersion while studying. So yeah, that's definitely why. And it also led me to, explore being more open-minded. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why.
Great. Great. Once you all kind of realized that studying abroad and going to university away from your home country was something you wanted to do, I'm curious to talk a little bit more about then kind of how you actually started the process. How did you start to build a list of universities that would be a good fit for you? How did you, I mentioned when we started, like it's a daunting process. There's a lot of universities to choose from. And if you even are thinking of just one destination, that's still a lot of universities. That some of you might have even been thinking of 2 destination countries, and that adds a whole nother layer. So Yayo, do you want to start and tell us a little bit about how you kind of started the process and how you built a list of schools to apply to?
Okay, so in terms of actually looking for schools that I wanted to apply to, the main things that I focused on, apart from like the location or like the weather in certain countries, was basically the kind of opportunities that they offered for somebody like me. So I wanted to study psychology. I knew that psychology was a research intensive field. And so I just looked for schools that would basically give students research opportunities. Apart from that, I'm also very interested in extracurricular activities. So as part of my criteria, I also had to look at schools that would like provide certain extracurricular activities that piqued my interest. And so I guess that's where I started like my list off.
Yeah, great. Katie, what about you? How did you kind of start the process and how did you land where you landed?
Yeah, so to be honest, because the decision to study abroad was so big, my family and I agreed at the start that if they were going to send me abroad, then they wanted it to be like a top university. And I know that's not for everybody, but for my family, it made sense. And that's why my tip was to go big. And so I started my list by looking at a lot of the top universities, specifically in my program, though. So I'd recommend doing that. So I was looking at computer science programs that were really good. And then after that, I would look more into specific programs they had. So specific minors or extracurriculars and clubs that would supplement that. And after, I would watch a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of YouTubers who were at that college to get a better vibe for that school, because not a lot of people, actually no one in the past 4 years from my school had gone to Cornell at least. So I had to watch a lot of YouTube videos and reach out to like distant friends or friends of friends to find out more.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It can be really hard to sort of get a feel for the universities that you're looking at, and never more so than now when, because of COVID, you definitely can't go and make campus visits. But even before it, it's difficult to go and actually visit all of the schools that you're considering and really get a feel for them. And you may not personally know someone who goes to all of the schools that you're considering. Yasmin, how did you sort of get to know the schools that you were interested in applying to, and what kinds of tools did you use to help make sure that you had a really clear sense of what their campus and their community would be like?
I definitely used Reddit a lot. I went on the Reddit website for like the college that I was applying to and checked out like kind of what people were saying and getting to know the school. And even when I was choosing the accommodation that I would be in, I would check out like what people said, like, where is this close to, would look at, also look at the, like Katie said, like the program that you're interested in the specific schools, because some of them on the course website, they even put in like, oh, extracurriculars you can do relating to this major. And that part of the website is always very good, because then you can also learn about things in, out of class that you can do that you're probably already interested in since you're majoring in that specific program. So I definitely looked on the course websites of PPE a lot in all the different colleges that I wanted to go. And like Katie, I didn't have a lot of seniors in my school who went to the US. So I definitely reached out to like friends of friends, and I would just randomly like message them on Instagram and just ask like, oh, are you studying here now? How is it there? How's the community for Malaysians there, and get them, sometimes I'll even get their advice on what helped them choose their universities as well, if they're in the same major as me. So I would definitely recommend like reaching out to anybody at all that might know someone who's in that school.
Can we just go around quickly? I'm curious to know how many universities each of you applied to, even if it's just like a range. It doesn't have to be the exact number. But Nisa, for you, if you only applied to schools in the UK, I'm assuming it was 5.
I actually applied to universities in Australia as well. So I think
okay.
Around 8-ish.
Okay. Yayo, how many universities did you apply to?
So I applied to 6 unis in Canada and 3 unis in my home country, Ghana.
Okay. Bianca?
I applied to, I believe, 8 unis in the United States. Most of them were in Florida, but maybe 3 were in Washington, D.C., because my major is international relations, and I wanted something in the capital if it was possible. And I also applied to 3 or 4 universities in Spain, and I was going to also apply to the UK, but then I withdrew from that because it just wasn't economically feasible.
Okay. Katie, do you remember how many universities you applied to?
I applied to 10 in the States and then 1 in the Philippines.
Okay. And Yasmin?
I applied to 8 in the US and 3 in the UK.
You all applied to a very reasonable and manageable number of universities, although I'm sure it didn't feel like that when you were going through the process, trying to keep track of all of your applications. What tips or advice would you give to students as far as just kind of like logistically keeping track of the application process and deadlines and all of the things that have to be completed and filled in? How did you manage that process? And what kind of support would you recommend to students as they're going through that? Bianca, do you want to start?
So what I did was I opened a Google Docs spreadsheet, and then I listed all of the universities I had applied to. And then I would do rows of like the deadline for the priority applications, the deadline for the regular applications. I would have like a little status update on my essays. So if I needed like say 3 supplemental essays in addition to the Common App essay, then I would make a column for each essay and then say last updated 10th December 2019 and so forth. And then I would also keep track of the last time I called them, the last time I emailed them, what it was about. I would also keep track of their answers. So because I had a lot of questions coming into a system that I didn't really know a lot about. So I would constantly be calling the universities like every week.
I saw several of you nodding your heads while Bianca was saying that. Did you all use a similar system for keeping track of things? Any other tips or advice you'd like to add as far as kind of managing the process? Yayo or Nisa? Katie?
Sorry.
That's okay, go ahead.
To start essays in the summer, especially for US universities, a lot of the prompts will come out in the summer already, like July, and my biggest regret is not doing that. So I'm asking you guys to do it because what the process was like for me was I was very slow. So from like September to November, I worked on one application, my early action school, and then I learned that I got deferred. So now I had to apply to 9 universities in the span of 3 weeks, and it was very intense. So if there's anything you can get a head start on, do it.
I think that's a great point. Yeah, it kind of comes at you fast and furious once the fall months begin. And you also sort of forget that you're going to be in your final year of high school. So there's going to be lots going on at school. There's going to be not only lots of academic work, but lots of fun activities that you'll want to be participating in. And the last thing you want is to feel like you are behind on the application stuff that has to be done, because yeah, those months go by really quickly and all of a sudden it's deadline day. Any other advice as far as that part of the process, kind of keeping track of your applications, managing the list of schools that you're going to apply to, that sort of stage of things? Anything, Yasmin or Yayo, do you want to add something?
Yes, I do. I just want to kind of hit on the researching your schools aspect. Just like, especially when you're applying, be sure of like the programs that you want to apply to. If you know that you want to like do something like, for example, psychology, there's the Bachelor of Arts Psychology and then Bachelor of Science Psychology. Just like be sure of the one that you want to apply to, because I made that mistake for one of my schools, and then instead of applying for Bachelor of Arts, I applied for Bachelor of Science, and then I ended up getting rejected. And so that's just one thing you should also focus on, because it's like a really easy mistake to make.
Yeah, there's so many things to select and fill in on all of those applications. It's such a good point. Like, do all of that double and triple checking to make sure you've selected the right things when you're doing the applications, but also take the extra time to make sure you've sort of done that research when you're at the even earlier stage of researching the schools, so that you know that you're applying to the right programs at the right institutions. I'm sure we're making it sound like there's loads to keep track of, but you guys are obviously 5 stories of success, having gone through the process and having managed it beautifully. So, we certainly don't want to make students feel like it's totally overwhelming. It's certainly manageable. And I think you guys have all done a really good job of managing the process and staying organized and now providing that advice and tips to prospective students. I want to move on from kind of the selecting your course conversation and the application conversation and talk a little bit about what it was like once you were admitted to institutions and you were sort of making those final decisions about where to go. Particularly, I want to touch on a couple of things I think can be really stressful for students, and that is, where are you going to live and how are you going to get your student visa? Those kind of practical matters. I know for many of you, hopefully the universities that you attend were instrumental in helping you get through the student visa process, but I'd love if you could give any sort of tips or advice or reassurance to students about that process. I think it is kind of one of those things that sort of hangs over students' heads in the process, like, okay, I'm going through all of this to apply to a university, to select the right schools, to get admitted, and then there's sort of that one final piece of making sure that you get the visa and you can actually go. So anything that you can share that might help reassure prospective students that the process isn't as scary as it may seem. Yasmin, do you want to comment on that?
So I made my visa back in August when I thought I was gonna fly for fall. And then the university was like, nope, we're not coming on campus for fall. So I think don't be too scared about the visa process. I know that it can seem very scary, especially because of COVID, but just put in like your appointments, make your appointments online, and remember that you can always call the embassy for any clarification. So for example, when I was applying for my visa, it was still probably July 2020. And I put in my appointment and they rejected it. They said, we're not open, like the office isn't open. But then when I called, they said they were open and they could make an exception for me. So if any of you get into like that sort of struggle because of COVID and maybe the embassy said they're not open or something, definitely call to make sure that there's another option, and explain your situation. Print out all the emails from your school saying that you need to go to school physically, like whether it's a hybrid kind of setup or an in-person completely setup. Print all those emails to show as proof, because that was one of the mistakes I made. I didn't print that out, and I had to email the embassy later on. And I don't know about anybody else's experience, but for me, when I went to the US Embassy in Malaysia, I went for my interview and then I got sent back. They didn't approve my visa yet, but they just like asked me to answer a list of questions through email. So I just had to do that, and then they gave me my visa. So sometimes it can feel a bit scary, especially when I got sent home, but it's just part of the process. And I think they were just increasing kind of security or something. So don't worry, just you are a student. You will for sure get your visa. Just remember to always call, and don't be put off by what they say on the website, especially when it comes to like COVID, like the restrictions because of COVID. Just call.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point too about just sort of generally throughout the process, you have to remember to be really proactive and advocate for yourself, both in the visa process, but also in corresponding with universities, checking on the status of your applications, those kinds of things. Like, it's just really important that you're not afraid to pick up the phone and make a phone call and check on these things. In the long run, it can only help to make sure that you have all of the information that you need and that everything is as it should be. But yeah, I think particularly with the visa process, it's something where it's, you want to make sure you're over prepared. So gather all of the information, print anything you think you might need. Better to have it with you than to not. Nisa, did you want to say anything about the process for you for the UK?
Yeah, so I agree that you have to be proactive, but with the UK application specifically, contacting the UKVI can be a bit costly because they charge you every time you contact them. So I think the best way to get guidance on your application would be straight through your university. So they help best in terms of your visa process. Yeah, but everything is on the UKVI website as well. So it's very like straightforward. Yeah.
Cool. And Yayo, since you're in Canada, do you want to say anything about the process for you?
I just wanted to say that just as Yasmin said, it may seem like scary initially because you feel like there are so many documents you need to fill out and all that, but then just know that like as long as you have like all your documents in place, everything should be like set and you wouldn't need to worry about anything. In terms of the actual visa application though, just as Nisa said, for me, reaching the embassy was kind of difficult, but then the university's international office basically made it easier because they had their own like immigration advisors and stuff like that. So you can contact your school, your university, find out if they have something like that in place, and then ask them to like connect you with that person, just so it makes the process like way easier.
Yeah, great. The other thing that I mentioned that I think is a source of anxiety for students, and you all will probably agree, is where are you going to live? And we had a lot of questions come in over social media and for students who registered for this event asking like, how do I arrange my accommodation from so far away? And how do I know if it's going to be safe? And how do I know what it looks like and who I'll be living with? And I think there's just, of course, where you're going to live, where you're going to keep your things and sleep and feel safe and feel at home is a big question mark over students' heads as they head off to study abroad. So I would love if you guys could share a little bit, and it may be helpful for each of you to just kind of share what your living arrangements are like on campus, how you found those living arrangements, and then just maybe comment on, how you feel like they have supported you in terms of safety and student welfare and things like that in your student accommodation. So Katie, do you want to start, and then we'll just kind of go around?
Yep, so my university provides guaranteed housing for first years and second years. So it's pretty straightforward because the housing office would just email us about the steps we had to take. I think we had to fill up a questionnaire. And then for roommates, I think roommates is another big fear in the States, but it was pretty fun. So one way they do it is through the form, and then the university will match you. But really the like better way is to join your class's Facebook group. And then a lot of people will start posting like, I'm so sorry about that, but people will start posting, what they like, what their sleeping habits are like, whether they're like studying in the room. And these are very important things to know about each other. And I think the good thing about knowing who your roommate is before is you can coordinate ahead of time, and you have that security in the summer instead of, waiting till you get to campus and then having your roommate assignment. So for me, it's been very smooth. I've also been very lucky. I got two of the best dorms in my first year and second year. And then now I'm a third year student, so I'm in an apartment. And that might seem daunting, but honestly, it's very fun. You do it with your friends, and everyone is like, it's new for most people there. So y'all will go on the adulting curve together.
Bianca, do you want to talk a little bit about housing on your campus and how you found it?
Yeah, so I'm a first year student, so I was originally going to stay in the freshman dorms because my university, for international university, they have a dorm specifically for first years, and they have housing specifically for other years as well, in order to ensure that someone can at least stay on campus if they need to. So there was that. I was going to stay there. That was the plan. And then for first years, we are also required to have a meal plan from the university to ensure that you can eat as well. You're not just there and just sleeping. You're not starving. So that was going to be my original plan. As for roommates, what we did was we would sign up with a housing agreement, and then you would get access to My College Roommate, which is like a platform where you can meet other people at your university who are also searching for rooms. So then you can group together and you can get to know one another and these types of things. And so we got to choose our own roommates. We got to basically, interview one another on our sleeping habits, on our cleaning habits, what we would need in the dorm, like whether we would share pots and pans or food or other basics. So it was quite easy for me, even though in the end I stayed in Barcelona. and I didn't go. I'm doing the same process for next year, and I already have my roommates. Everything's already squared and settled out. So I'm really happy about that.
Great. Yasmin, I know that you just arrived on campus a few weeks ago. Do you want to talk about what it's been like to kind of get settled in your accommodation and how you found it?
Yeah, I live in an apartment style building, so I'm really lucky because I have a housemate, so I get to see her at least because of COVID restrictions. A lot of like the more typical hall-like buildings, they would have like more restrictions on bathrooms and all of that. So it's been really good that I'm in an apartment so I can, at least kind of talk with my roommate and socialize with her. It's been quite weird being on campus for the first time because of COVID, and UPenn is, and I think a lot of other universities also are enforcing really strict restrictions. We can't really go into each other's buildings, each other's rooms. The dining hall isn't open for dine-in, it's just grab and go. None of the student lounges are open. So I found it quite weird, but I am very lucky to have a housemate that I get along with, some floor mates that I also get along with. And other than that, everything's virtual, so I still get to meet people through clubs online and also in my classes, my online classes.
Yeah, it leads into another really good question, but I do want to quickly hear from Nisa about your accommodation at your university, because you also just recently arrived on campus. So what's your accommodation like, and were you able to sort of get a sense of what it would be like before you arrived?
Yeah, so the accommodation process is similar to Katie's, where you have like a form and then the university matches you. In terms of like getting to know what the university was like, it was mainly from anecdotes from my friends who got here before me. So I'm not experiencing the liveliness at the moment, sadly, because it's really empty. But yeah, a lot of that is it's just virtual right now.
Yeah, good. I think it brings up a good question, just hearing Yasmin and Nisa, both of your comments about things being virtual, and even though you're on campus, it doesn't really feel like that sort of traditional campus experience. And I know a lot of students in our audience really want to know, what is it like on campus right now, and how are you connecting with other students and with your professors, and how are you sort of making it feel like you're on campus and with other people, even if you can't actually spend a lot of face-to-face time with them. Yayo, do you want to talk a little bit about what your experience is at the moment on campus?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of connecting with people, there aren't any in-person events, as you said, but there are a lot of like online events. So like sometimes the school would organize something, or my students association, or the international office, or just like the residence building alone. So for me, they're like a bunch of events for like I think every week or so, just to keep people like connected and like involved. But then apart from that, another way I was able to connect with people in my year was just like finding Facebook groups or like Instagram pages dedicated to like my graduating class, because through those pages I was also able to like connect with more people and get to know more people.
Yeah, great. Any other tips or experiences sort of connecting virtually with your classmates and faculty members and things like that over the last semester or two?
I think students can maybe make an effort to go to office hours that the professors hold, and just even if you don't have a question about the course content, you can just go say hi, introduce yourself, and just get to know the professor. Or maybe a more approachable kind of option would be to go to the TA's office hours, and then you can just like ask them about their research and all of that. That's a good way to kind of make connections. And also just putting yourself out there. I've always, like, when I meet someone in my class that's in the same year as me, that's also a freshman, I would just private message them on Zoom, and I was like, are you on campus? And then I just leave them my number. And then that's usually how I start texting people in my year and making friends and trying to make, plans to meet safely. So that's what I've been doing, and it's been working quite well.
Yeah, good. That's great. I think another example of just kind of being proactive and not being afraid to sort of put yourself out there, and in the end it makes your experience a lot better and the experience of the students that you're connecting with. So that's awesome. Anybody else want to talk about, just, I know there were a lot of questions that came in from our audience about like, what is it like right now and how are you coping on campus? And I think, in fact, a question came in from the audience today related to that about homesickness. How are you coping with homesickness and being so far away from home, especially during, on top of everything, a pandemic and not being able to see friends and not being able to go to big social events? I think it's all sort of compounded. But you're all here smiling and saying what a great experience you're having and how glad you are you decided to study abroad. So how are you coping with some of those sort of more difficult aspects of studying abroad, particularly homesickness? Nisa, do you want to start?
Sure. So my family is literally like so far away in Australia, so that's the other side of the world. So the time difference is tough, but I do call them every week, at least every day. So thankfully, I was able to be connected through that. I can't do much about missing food because I'm not a great chef. So I do miss the food. So that's like a big aspect that I have to tackle in terms of homesickness. But do learn some recipes before you go, if you manage to do that. So yeah, just call.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Learn recipes from home so that you can replicate them when you're feeling homesick or when you're just craving some home comforts. Yayo, how are you doing and how are you staying connected with friends and family while you're away?
So as Nisa said, it's actually been quite tough because my family is all the way in Ghana. But then I guess like talking to them every day via phone call kind of helps. Also, my sister actually lives not too far away. And so even if I can't like talk to my parents, I still have my sister to talk to. So that's pretty nice. I am also a huge food person. And so when I was moving here, I actually brought a lot of snacks from home and then also learned like a couple like recipes that I can make easily just so that anytime I'm feeling homesick, I can just like grab a couple ingredients and then just make those.
Yeah. I guess kind of, Bianca, the opposite question for you, which is how are you dealing with making connections with fellow students and making friends and making sure that when you do arrive on campus, you feel like you sort of already have a community there and around you. How are you making that work while you're learning remotely?
So what I did was, a lot of what Katie, Yasmin, Yayo, and Nisa have been saying, joining Facebook groups and Instagram pages. And then also what I do is in my class, like my classes, I turn on my video and I am active as much as possible in my classes. So even if I reach out to someone in the class WhatsApp chat, they know what I look like and they know my voice and they have a little introduction to me, even if I don't know them specifically. So what I will do to reach out to someone in my class is if they have their videos on, which hopefully they do, and I see something interesting, I don't know, for example, I made one of my best friends just now, her chihuahua jumped into the class, into the video, and I complimented her via the private chat, like, hey, nice chihuahua, and then the friendship hit off from there. I'll also try to make good friends with the people I find on my college roommate. So I will have at least people I know of there. I will also try to be on good terms with the professors because sometimes, they really like you. Then they will give you tours of the campus when you arrive there. You can go to lunch and talk over different things. They can introduce you to many different people who have your same interests. And so that's what I'm looking forward to the most in the campus, in order, to meet my professors, for them to introduce me to people, for me to meet the people I've met online already.
Yeah. That's great. We have only a few minutes left, and I want to take a couple of questions that have just come in over the Q&A here. One of them is, those of you who were accepted to more than one university, which I expect is probably several of you, all of you, how did you decide which one was the right fit? So I think an underestimated point of stress and sort of anxiety in this whole process is everybody breathes a sigh of relief when you've clicked submit on all of your applications. And then I think some students are sort of caught by surprise when that springtime period comes where you have to actually make those final decisions. And that can be quite stressful because you've hopefully applied to schools that you're excited about. And it can be a really tough decision to kind of decide, okay, now I've got these options in front of me, which one is the right one? And it's a big decision to make. Katie, do you want to talk about how you made that decision?
Yeah, so I think the typical answer is usually to first do your research, to reach out to a lot of people who who attend that university and then get their vibe. But I think more importantly, you need to do a lot of self-reflection for yourself about what you want in your own college experience. So for me, I found myself choosing between Cornell and UC Berkeley. So very different options. Like Cornell is on the East Coast, Berkeley's on the West Coast. And the way I ended up deciding was, I guess, 3 criteria. So one was location. I'm from the Philippines, the tropics. It's normally like 25 degrees Celsius or 85 at most Fahrenheit. So I thought at first I was actually leaning towards Berkeley because I was like, obviously that's the only climate I can survive. Like simply put, I can't survive in it's -6 degrees Celsius right now here. So that was one thing. And then the second was the academic program. So I knew that Cornell had a lot of different programs for like computer science, economics, business, creative writing, and a lot of different options. And Berkeley did have the same, but when I spoke to people, they talked about how competitive it could be because it was a public school. So there were cutoffs for GPAs, and I imagined myself like having to grind for the first 2 years. So I was kind of like, I grinded a lot in high school. I think I can chill a bit now, chill. And so I think for me, what I learned from that is that I don't, for my college experience, I don't want it to be in a safe, like in my comfort zone. And for me, I think Berkeley was like that, but Cornell on the other hand was, far in like upstate New York. I didn't know anybody there. And I just thought because of that, though, that I would grow so much from being alone. Like it could be a big hit or a big flop, but I was committed to making it work. And I think I've been challenged so much because I really got to start on a fresh canvas. And I really appreciate that now.
Yeah. For those of you who applied to multiple countries, which I think is nearly everyone here, if not everyone, there's another sort of layer to that decision-making process, which is maybe you've been admitted to universities in 2 different countries, and how did you decide which country was the best for you? And I expect that the answer to that is also very layered because the education systems are different and it depends on what you're looking for. But is there any one of the 5 of you that was admitted to universities in more than one country and had to make that decision, in a fairly short span of time in the spring? Yes. Yasmin, how did you make that decision?
I got into some really good schools in both the UK and US, and it was really tough because my family, like in Malaysia, I think most people know a lot about the UK schools, but not the US schools. So when my parents found out I got into UPenn, they were like, "What is that?" They don't really know what it is, and they were really encouraging me to go to the UK. But I know, like Katie said, you have to do a lot of self-reflection, and I would have been happy in both the schools in UK and the US, but I know that I wanted that liberal arts curriculum. I knew I wanted that flexibility to explore and then declare my major in the second year. So in the end, I chose to go to the US. And then when I chose to go to the US, I was choosing between Cornell and Penn, I think. And then I was looking at the program. Yeah, like Katie said, I was looking at the program, and Penn had PPE and Cornell didn't have PPE specifically. They had other politics related subjects, but not PPE specifically. So that was how I made my decision. It was definitely based on education. But I know other people have different preferences. Other people might want to think more about the weather, whether they have family there, whether they have close connections there as well. If I had gone to the UK, there would be more of a Malaysian community there because there are a lot of Malaysians who study abroad in the UK. So if that's important to you, then, you know, you have to make the criteria according to what you are looking for in your university experience.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many things to consider. It's not just whether or not they offer the academic program you're looking for, although that is crucial, but it's of course also those things like the weather and proximity to family or friends or, you know, a support network and all of those things. So, well, we are almost out of time. I want to just really quickly go around and have everyone share their sort of one quick tip that they would give to someone who is considering studying abroad. And then, of course, time for you guys to tell us a little bit about I Believe. So let's start with Bianca with the tips, and we'll go around, and then we'll wrap up with you guys sharing some information about your organization.
All right. So my number one tip would be to apply to universities that, one, you will be happy to attend. Like, if you are accepted there, you will want to attend. It's a place where you really want to go, that you think you will enjoy. And two, that are economically feasible. You know, it's always good to apply to a few reach schools, both economically and academically, but at the end of the day, you know, you will have to go with what you are able to do with your abilities. So just keep those two factors in mind and you'll be well.
Yeah, great. Yayo?
I guess what I would like to share is that in terms of the application process, just make sure to take note of everything that you'd need, like all the essays and all that, and then research your schools just so you know what exactly you want in the school and what you need to apply, and just keep track of like the deadlines and stuff like that, just so it makes the process a whole lot smoother for you.
Great. Nisa?
So my number one tip is to, like Katie said, be truly reflective and then open-minded. Stay mindful when you're going through this process as well. Like, just notice your surroundings. Try to notice what your interests are. Pick up on those things and ultimately weigh out, like, does this really fit into my interests currently? You don't have to know specifically and everything that you want to do at the moment. Just, you know, make sure you know bits and pieces of your interests.
Yeah, great. Yasmin?
My tip would be to always choose what you want, and not what your parents want, what you think people would want you to take. Because I know I struggle a lot with that when I was doing my university application process. I know that there can be restrictions in terms of like scholarships, major, financial constraint. But given all those restrictions in consideration, I think you should still choose what you can see yourself doing or what you can see yourself being happy in, because choosing something that you don't want to do is just going to make your university experience miserable. So yes, choose something that you know you can be happy doing.
And your tip, Katie?
Yeah, my tip is to use the college application process as a really great opportunity to understand yourself, honestly, and celebrate how far you've come. Because I think when people think college applications, like stress, deadlines, like it seems very daunting. But if you're able to slow down, like Nisa said, and like be present in that moment, you can really see how far you've come, how much you've accomplished, and just own that regardless of whatever the result.
That's great. And do you want to spend a few minutes telling us a little bit about I Believe and how students might be able to use the resources that you provide?
I'd love to. So everyone here right now is on I Believe, which is an education initiative to support IB students, which is the International Baccalaureate Program. So when the pandemic started in March, we started this so that we could provide extra resources, extra mentorship to students in the IB program. And right now, I'll hand it off to each member so that they can talk a bit more about their team and what they do.
Great. Who wants to start? Yasmin?
Oh, okay, cool. So I'm part of the outreach team with Yasmin, and what we do is we manage the partnerships and the tutoring and mentoring partnerships. So that's just tutoring involves subject content help, and mentoring involves like just the general academic side. Wait, sorry, not academics, like the more like time management and things like this. So yeah.
Great.
Apart from that, we also have the Global Virtual Summit, or the GVS, we call it, which is a 3-hour online workshop based on a specific theme. So I know we've had a few, I believe has held a few GVS on the topic of college applications, for example. So 1 hour would be a panel similar to this, where students can come and ask questions, and then the IB graduates or volunteers from, I believe, would answer their questions. And then there would also be live chat sessions where students can sign up for one-on-one chats with IB graduates who are in university, and answer, ask any question they want to personally to one volunteer from, I believe. So we try to have that every month regularly.
Great. Bianca or Yayo, your teams?
So for me, I'm with the social media team, and we basically deal with everything, I believe, social media related. So from the Instagram page to the TikTok page, all of the content on there is mainly managed by the social media team.
Great.
I am one of 3 blog editors. So we have a website, ibelieve.org, and we have, I believe, over 130 articles published there already. And it's really amazing. What I do is I receive articles written from our high school ambassadors, which is a program that you can be in to be involved in Ivy Leave. And then me and my peers, we revise and we edit them. We optimize them for Google searches and for the software, and then we publish them on the website. We also revise and edit articles that wind up on the Instagram page. So everything you see there is, cut down, trimmed, and tailored specifically for the Instagram format and for social media format, which is completely different writing from blog writing because of the length and everything. And we also have a writing team, which is specifically, we have, I believe right now, 9 writers who write monthly articles based on the themes that the editors choose, and we publish them regularly. And every other day we publish articles. So if you want to give that a look, you can. We tailor to everything from pre-IB to IB year 1 and year 2, as well as some college application tips, tricks, and resources that you can use to help you and help make this transition for you easier.
That's great. So, yeah, go ahead, Katie.
Yeah, is that even if you're not an IB student watching this, we also have a lot of resources for you guys. So a lot of the articles we do are about like college applications in general, tips for time management, whatever program you're in, whether that's GCSE, A-levels, or AP. We also have advice for you. And I also just want to thank everyone for coming. I know there are some I Believe people on the chat, so thank you guys for showing up, and thank you, Jamie, for having us.
Yeah, thank you. It's been great to have you guys, and dare I say, we will hopefully be hearing more from you over the course of the year, learning a bit more about how things are shaping up at your campuses, especially as things start to open up and you get a bit more settled. THE student will definitely be checking in to see how things are going. And I know there were quite a few questions in the chat and that came in over the course of the week about funding and scholarships and things like that. So I just want to say, stay tuned to THE Student. We're going to be providing a lot more information both via events and on our website about funding opportunities, because I know that's a critical area that we didn't get to touch on today. So lots more to come on that. But a big thanks to all of you for joining us, and a thanks to our panelists for being here and sharing your insight. It was great to have you. Thanks so much. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for hosting us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.